A second student has died from injuries she suffered in Friday's shooting at Marysville Pilchuck High School in Washington State. You're looking at Gia Soriano, and she did die yesterday, Sunday. After, of course, Zoe Galasso, who you're looking at now. She died on the scene of this latest school shooting tragedy. 3 other victims are still fighting for their lives right now. Hundreds came together Sunday night in the school gym, shedding tears and offering comfort to one another, very needed in a situation like this. But more details are now emerging about the shooter's possible motive. We always want to know why this happened, and there's also information about a teacher who helped stop the bloodshed. Witnesses say she confronted the shooter and grabbed his arm moments before the teenager was able to take his own life, so she at least tried. I want to bring in Dr. Jodi Gold. Now, she's Director of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry at Weill Cornell Medical College. She's also the author of something that's very relevant for this discussion today, Screen Smart Parenting. That's how to find balance and benefit in your child's use of social media, apps, and digital devices. And oh boy, Doc, is this an area that we parents don't know a damn thing about. We're lost with social media. The kids are 2 steps ahead, and we either don't have the time, the inclination, or maybe the fear to figure out what's going on. Very key to this story. But let's take a step back. We see too many of these. There seems to be a profile. This kid was isolated. They were upset. People knew it, but they didn't know what to do. He was mentally ill, but he wasn't being treated, or he wasn't taking his meds. And then he had access to a weapon that he shouldn't have, and then this happened. This is not this kid. How so?
Well, I don't think of this as being a typical school shooting. To me, this seems like a targeted shooting that happened to happen at a school.
That's a distinction with a difference.
Yes, because we've seen a profile of school shootings. The typical school shooter is really angry and alienated and is making a statement against mainstream culture, against the institution. This child was very successful in high school. He was a football player and a homecoming prince. He wasn't making a statement against the institution of the school. He was angry and pissed off at his friends.
So why? So you think that's why he did it?
I think it sounds like he was alienated and angry and acted impulsively.
But that's not normal.
No.
And he was above normal when you look at him, right? Public esteem, how he was perceived, how he perceived himself, supposedly was very strong, objectively and subjectively doing well, had community around him, people who loved him. So how do you go from, I'm upset about a girl, theoretically, it's one theory that's out there about this, mad at my friends, the guys who I thought I loved the most, to hurt me the most, to this?
Yeah, it's hard to wrap your mind around it, but I think it says a lot about teenagers and impulsive behaviors, and I think he was really, it sounds like he was really betrayed, and he couldn't modulate his emotions, and obviously, I think people reached out to him. He had a really supportive network. I think we can't say anything about that, but obviously he was angry, and he was rageful, and he is only 14 or 15 years old, and he had access to a gun.
Now, when the uninitiated hear only 14, 15, they say, yeah, but he's 14, 15. This is not a way for a 14, 15-year-old to think, to behave. That's because we don't understand the development of the mind as well as we should. It's not an excuse. You're saying it's science. Right. Where is the head on a kid that age? Yeah,
let's be clear about that. He was 14 or 15, not 25 years old. His brain's not as well developed. His ability to have executive planning, to think ahead, to be thoughtful, to be able to modulate his emotions is the same as an adult. It's certainly not an excuse for this behavior, but I think it's a window into sort of understanding.
And where we get that he was troubled is that, and that takes it into an area of your particular expertise, the social media. When you go back and look, it was more than just, it won't last, it will never last. That's supposedly the last tweet from the shooter. And that's kind of vague, who even knows what it is. But you say if you had been on the social media of this kid, you would have seen things. How so?
I think you would have seen things, but I want to be clear. I don't think there's anyone to blame. I don't think that there was a lot of warning signs. Usually in school shootings, we can go back, we can see the manifestos, we can see a window into their soul through their Twitter or their Facebook. I wouldn't say that's completely true here. I think what we saw is that a week or so prior to the event, his behavior changed a little bit, and that was reflected in his Twitter feeds. But I'm not sure that what he posted was anything that would have caused a huge alarm. It wasn't really a call to arms. It sounded like he was hurt and betrayed and angry.
So what are you supposed to do? I mean, the one thing we try to take solace is we try to respect the victims, we try to help the communities heal, and we try to figure out how to do better. What do we take from this?
This is a really hard one because this kid wasn't mentally ill, wasn't violent, had a supportive family. He did reach out on Twitter, but it sounds like his friends reached out to him as well. I think what we have to take from this is that, you know, kids take betrayal and emotion and relationships very seriously, and as parents and educators, we have to not minimize it. And when you see any change of behavior, when you know your child, especially a boy, has been hurt or betrayed in a relationship, you have to take it seriously. You can look at the social media. A lot of people don't agree with me, but I think that if your child is hurting and not talking to you, you should check out his social media profile. I don't think you'd know that he was going to shoot anybody, but you would certainly know that he was hurting and maybe be able to help.
And you know who may have known better? His friends. Again, there's nothing productive about blaming. That's never the point. The point is the kids know better these days than the parents, and that's almost a basis for why back off. They're like, you know, I don't know. The kids will know. I think that the idea of community, which is coming up very strong out in Washington right now to help the people who need it most, I think maybe it's the clue going forward as well. We have to pay more attention to each other, and maybe we'll pick up on things that aren't that obvious.
Yeah, I think that teenagers should really listen to what they see online, and you should post online who you really are. Don't pretend to be somebody else. And if you're really hurting and you need help and you post it on Twitter and Facebook, I hope that your friends and your families will take it seriously.
One of the hardest things to do in life is be honest about yourself.
It's true.
Dr. Jodi Gold, thank you very much for the perspective on this. It's a horrible experience to have to listen to learn from.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, Allison.